Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Operations Teardown. Today, I'm going to walk you through how I have been able to create an integration between my Google Calendar and my Notion such that every single block that shows up on my calendar, whether it's call it meetings with myself, task blocks, meetings with others, or whether it's across my team's calendar as well in terms of the meetings they're having with clients, with myself, with other parties within the team, including their task blocks. We at Well Aware like to take our time very seriously. And the way that we do that on a practical level is we turn every single block that is on our Google Calendar, which is our way of kind of ledgering, in a nutshell, where our time logistically is going each professional workday that we invest. That ends up all getting converted into Notion records, which within said system allow us to do a lot of what we like to think are pretty helpful associations with other components of data, meaning relationship records, action item records, commitment records, knowledge records, the track system, as we have come to call it. And so what makes all this possible is actually what was realistically a long time pursuit for something that actually meets these two systems and actually allows them to synchronize together. And that was this company right here called 2Sync, previously known as Notion Automations. 2Sync is what allows us to take our Google Calendar data and actually push it into Notion in a way that simplifies a lot of our work, because otherwise we'd have to be doing this manually with every single record. It's just not. So what I'm going to walk you through today is just how we make that system work. In a nutshell, I'm going to introduce you to a little bit of my Google Calendar, 2Sync, and then the Notion time record database as we have it. So let's start off with my calendar. So this is my calendar for this coming week, right? Got a lot of stuff here. Ooh, showing my underwear. I want you to realize that every single block of time here is accounted for by this 2Sync system that I'm going to show you briefly. And for all record that exist on my work calendar, we'll talk about personal commitments in a second. For everything that shows up on my work calendar, I have a corresponding time record that gets generated inside of my Notion database. And the same goes for everyone across my team as well. Allow me to explain a little bit further. See, inside of 2Sync, which we've already set up, we have this automation going across all of our team's calendars. And the way this synchronization works is it basically connects to our Well Aware Notion team space, and it specifically connects to the database that we've defined as Well Aware Time. Now, field mapping wise, what we're doing is we're saying to 2Sync, we're saying, hey, please make a one-way update from Google Calendar to Notion and just enter the following data based on the properties that we've established here in our Notion record, which you'll see in just a minute. So what's the name of the event? What's the date? Who are the attendees? Whose calendar is this? Can we get a link to that calendar block? What was the location of this meeting? The following sync status Notion Automations data, that's just legacy information. It's just more robot text to put everything together. And then organizer, who actually created the calendar invite itself. I've got some filters here because I don't necessarily want to see everything. So fun fact, this is a little bit of an extra operations teardown for you that I'm not going to go into more detail, but using a system called reclaim.ai, I can take all of my personal Gmail calendar blocks, meaning everything I deem to be just for me. I don't need everyone else to see this. Every time I create a calendar block on my personal calendar, a personal commitment block shows up on my cruiz@wellaware.me email address. And through that block, I'm able to privately protect my time while also informing everyone else that, hey, I have a personal commitment going on. I don't need records in Notion to be created based on those personal commitment blocks. So I just have a filter that says, don't include that. Same goes for out of office and travel. If I need to grab a travel record or an out of office record, I'm going to write those in a particularly different way. Okay, with that, we can get into default Notion values, but in my case, the only default Notion value that I really set up for all of my time record properties is just the time status is marked as not started. This is because conventionally, every time there's a new record in our database, it's always not started, meaning not interacted upon until someone interacts with it. Last but not least, sync settings, just to close out this little menu here. I can set my sync time frame to however many days behind, however many months ahead. In this case, because we have so many records going, I've made it easier on the system by just not requesting syncs that go so far back or so far ahead. And this works out pretty well in terms of spacing for when we need to get the Google Calendar data from ourselves and our team. And then realistically, the real interesting aspects here are adding Notion links below every description. Right now, we don't have the two-way sync setup a capability to allow this to show up. We've actually talked about Simo about this. Simo, if you're watching, I'm sorry. This is another plug. In the past, we used to have it so that in Google Calendar, if you looked at the block, you could click to get to the Notion link, and that would take you to the Notion record equivalent of that calendar block. Right now, we only have it the other way around. And it's a long story as to why it's the case, but it has to do with the way two-way synchronization works. And in our particular case, it does not work for us as compared to just a one-way synchronization. Anyway, all that said, this system allows us to now have this. This is a view, and I'll show you this week's view because I just showed you this week of my calendar. This captures every single block that my team has on their calendar, what I have on my calendar. I can obviously sort and filter this whole database. Imagine just every single Google Calendar block now has its own record. And I'll say, like, for my records in particular, I'll go to my next one. Okay, Rick and I are going to talk about large flightless birds. So for this block, I'm going to say, well, this is just going to be a basic time record template. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to start to dive into my entire documentation system for how I like to capture my meeting notes. Usually we're very retroactive about this, meaning once 24 hours have occurred, my assistance team and I, we sit down, we go, okay, what happened in the past 24 hours? What do we have to associate? What do we have to document? What do we have to follow up on? And so that's a conversation that then leads into this system being updated with all this data. But as you can see here, TrueSync has already done a lot of justice for us. It's actually taken care of some of the more minute aspects that we simply can't do ourselves or wouldn't want to, basically, given the cost and volume of the task. And yeah, by process of doing all of this, I and the Well Aware team now have this full level fidelity of what is on our Google Calendar, what has been looked after in terms of those records. Did we review those calendar blocks? Did we have any questions, comments, concerns? What did we write about? What happened there? So that is a justice that we have toward self-awareness from a professional standpoint. We call it track management, time being the T in that track. The other four databases being relationships, actions, commitments, and knowledge, RACK, TRACK, track. And so, yeah, in this case, again, and now I'm going over my operations teardown at this point. But I would say just for Rick and I know that Rick is indeed Rick Leander of Large Flightless Birds. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it down. That's a relationship record I have, and I'm going to associate that relationship record with this time record. TrueSync also does this as well, where if you allow it to, based on who your invited attendees are, it can recognize that you have a relationships database like we do, and you could have it auto-associate. We have just, because of the way people tend to sometimes attend or not attend meetings, we've decided to just have the invited attendees detailing here so that we know, hey, this is the Rick of LFB Holdings in this case, but in the context of this meeting, I know him as Large Flightless Birds. Okay, now we're starting to get into how does Well Aware establish different personas for different relationships. I'm totally digressing here. What I want to highlight at the end of the day, again, is just that by process of having this synchronization here, every Google Calendar block is now in Notion as a record that can be fully dealt with in its own regard for fidelity, documentation, transparency, communication about issues, problems, insights, whatever you name it for. And that's just the Well Aware way. I hope you found this helpful. Until next time, be well.